UFOs in prehistoric times. Ancient astronauts. Some writers have proposed that intelligent extraterrestrial beings have visited Earth in antiquity or prehistory, and made contact with humans. Such visitors are called ancient astronauts, or ancient aliens. Proponents suggest that this contact influenced the development of human cultures, technologies, and religions. A common variant of the idea is that deities from most, if not all, religions are actually extraterrestrials, and their technologies were taken as evidence of their divine status. These proposals have been popularized, particularly in the latter half of the 20th century, by writers such as Erich von Däniken, Giorgio H. Tsoukalos, Zecharia Sitchin, Robert K. G. Temple, David Icke, and Peter Colosimo, but the idea that ancient astronauts actually existed is not taken seriously by most academics, and has received little, or no credible attention in peer-reviewed studies. Ancient astronauts have been widely used as a plot device in science fiction. Proponents of ancient astronaut theories often maintain that humans are either descendants, or creations of extraterrestrial beings who landed on Earth thousands of years ago. An associated idea is that much of human knowledge, religion, and culture came from extraterrestrial visitors in ancient times, in that ancient astronauts acted as a mother culture. Ancient astronaut proponents also believe that travelers from outer space known as astronauts, or spacemen built many of the structures on Earth such as the pyramids in Egypt, and the Moai stone heads of Easter Island, or aided humans in building them. Proponents argue that the evidence for ancient astronauts comes from supposed gaps in historical and archaeological records, and they also maintain that absent or incomplete explanations of historical or archaeological data point to the existence of ancient astronauts. The evidence is said to include archaeological artifacts that they argue are anachronistic, or beyond the presumed technical capabilities of the historical cultures with which they are associated, sometimes referred to as out-of-place artifacts, and artwork, and legends which are interpreted as depicting extraterrestrial contact, or technologies. Certain mainstream academics have responded that gaps in contemporary knowledge of the past need not demonstrate that such speculative ancient astronaut ideas are a necessary conclusion to draw. Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of the double helix structure of DNA, however strongly believed in what he called panspermia, the concept that Earth was seeded with life, probably in the form of blue-green algae, by intelligent extraterrestrial species, for the purpose of ensuring life's continuity. He believed that this could have been done on any number of planets of this class, possibly using unmanned shuttles. He talks at length about this theory in his book Life Itself. Thomas Gold, a professor of astronomy, suggested a garbage theory for the origin of life. The theory says that life on Earth might have spread from a pile of waste products accidentally dumped on Earth long ago by extraterrestrials. The television series Ancient Aliens on the History Channel features the main proponents in the ancient astronaut theory, and includes interviews with Giorgio H. Tsoukalos, David Childress, Erich von Däniken, Stephen Greer, and Nick Pope. UFO Religion. Various new religious movements including Theosophy, Nation of Islam, Scientology, the Urantia Book, Realism, and Heaven's Gate believe in ancient, and present-day contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Many of these faiths see both ancient scriptures, and recent revelations as connected with the action of aliens from other planetary systems. Sociologists and psychologists have found that UFO religions have similarities which suggest that members of these groups consciously, or subliminally associate enchantment with the memes of science fiction. Ancient religious texts. Proponents cite ancient mythologies to support their viewpoints based on the idea that ancient creation myths of gods who descend from the heavens to earth to create or instruct humanity are actually representations of alien visitors, whose superior technology accounts for their reception as gods. Proponents attempt to draw an analogy to occurrences in modern times when isolated cultures are exposed to Western technology, such as when, in the early 20th century, cargo cults were discovered in the South Pacific. Cultures who believed various Western ships, and their cargo to be sent from the gods as fulfillment of prophecies concerning their return. Ramayana. In Hindu mythology, the gods and their avatars travel from place to place in flying vehicles, variously called flying chariots, flying cars, or Vimanas. There are many mentions of these flying machines in the Ramayana, which dates to the 5th or 4th century BCE. Some examples. From Book 6, Canto, The Magic Car. Is not the wondrous chariot mine? Named Pushpak, wrought by hands divine. This chariot, kept with utmost care, will waft thee through the fields of air, and thou shalt light unwearied down in fair Ayodhya's royal town. From Book 6, Canto, The Departure. Swift through the air, as Rama chose, the wondrous car from earth arose, and decked with swans and silver wings, bore through the clouds its freight of kings. Eric von Daniken discusses the Ramayana, and the Vimanas in Chariots of the Gods. Chapter 6, suggesting that they were space vehicles. To support his theory, he also offers a quotation which he says is from an 1889 translation of the Mahabharata by C. Roy. Dharma flew with his Vimana on an enormous ray which was as brilliant as the sun and made a noise like the thunder of a storm. Book of Genesis, and Book of Enoch. The Book of Genesis, chapter 6 verses 1 to 4, states: When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. Genesis 6 to 1 to 4, New International Version. One interpretation is that the Nephilim are the children of the sons of God, and daughters of humans, although scholars are uncertain. The King James Version replaces the term Nephilim with giants. The first part of the apocryphal Book of Enoch expands, and interprets Genesis 6 to 1. It explains that the sons of God were a group of 200 angels called Watchers. Against God's wishes, these Watchers descended to earth to breed with humans. Their offspring are the Nephilim, giants who consumed all the acquisitions of men. When humans could no longer sustain the Nephilim, they turned against humanity. The Watchers also instructed humans in metallurgy, and metalworking, cosmetics, sorcery, astrology, astronomy, and meteorology. God then ordered the Watchers to be imprisoned in the ground. He created the great flood to rid earth of the Nephilim, and of the humans who had been given knowledge by the Watchers. However, to ensure humanity's survival, Noah is forewarned of the oncoming destruction. Because they disobeyed God, the book also describes the Watchers as fallen angels. Some ancient astronaut theorists believe that this story is a historical account of extraterrestrials visiting Earth. In their interpretation, the angels are extraterrestrials and were called Watchers because their mission was to observe humanity. Some of the extraterrestrials disobeyed orders. They made contact with humans, crossbred with human females, and shared knowledge with them. The Nephilim were thus half-human half-extraterrestrial hybrids. Chuck Missler and Mark Eastman argue that modern UFOs carry the fallen angels, or offspring of fallen angels. The Nephilim of Genesis, who have now returned. They believe it was this interbreeding between the angels and humans that led to what they call the gene pool problem. Noah was perfect in his generations, that is, Noah's genealogy was not tarnished by the intrusion of fallen angels. It seems that this adulteration of the human gene pool was a major problem on the planet Earth. Von Daniken also suggests that the two angels who visited Lot in Genesis 19 were not angels, but ancient astronauts. They may have used atomic weapons to destroy the city of Sodom. In any case, the otherworldly beings acted as if there was a time set for Sodom's destruction. Von Daniken questioned why God would work on a timetable and why an infinitely good father would give preference to favorite children, such as Lot's family, over countless others. Mark Dem completely reinterprets Genesis by claiming humanity started on another planet, and that the God of the Bible is an extraterrestrial. Book of Ezekiel. In the biblical Old Testament, Chapter 1 of the Book of Ezekiel recounts a vision in which Ezekiel sees an immense cloud that contains fire, and emits lightning, and brilliant light. It continues. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. These creatures are described as winged, and humanoid. They sped back and forth like flashes of lightning, and fire moved back and forth among the creatures. The passage goes on to describe 4 shiny objects, each appearing like a wheel intersecting a wheel. These objects could fly, and they moved with the creatures. When the living creatures moved, the wheels beside them moved, and when the living creatures rose from the ground, the wheels also rose. In Chapter 4 of Chariots of the Gods, entitled Was God an Astronaut?, Von Daniken suggests that Ezekiel had seen a spaceship or spaceships. This hypothesis had been put forward by Morris Jessup in 1956, and by Arthur W. Wharton in 1961. A detailed version of this hypothesis was described by Joseph F. Blumrich in his book The Spaceships of Ezekiel, 1974. Other suggested biblical mentions. The characteristics of the Ark of the Covenant, and the Urim and Thummim have been said to suggest high technology, perhaps from alien origins. Robert Diane and Paul Misraki published books in the 1960s claiming the events in the Bible were caused by alien technology. Barry Downing, a Presbyterian minister, wrote a book in 1968 claiming that Jesus was an extraterrestrial sighting, John 8:23, and other biblical verses as evidence. Some ancient astronaut proponents such as von Daniken and Barry Downing believe that the concept of hell in the Bible could be a real description of the planet Venus brought to Earth by extraterrestrials, showing photos of the hot surface on Venus to humans. Ancient artwork. Other artistic support for the ancient astronaut theory has been sought in Paleolithic cave paintings. Wandjina in Australia, and Valcamonica in Italy are claimed to bear a resemblance to present-day astronauts. Supporters of the ancient astronaut theory sometimes claim that similarities such as dome-shaped heads, interpreted as beings wearing space helmets, prove that early man was visited by an extraterrestrial race. More support of this theory draws upon what are claimed to be representations of flying saucers in medieval and Renaissance art. This is used to support the ancient astronaut theory by attempting to show that the creators of humanity return to check up on their creation throughout time. Nazca Lines. The ancient Nazca Lines comprise hundreds of enormous ground drawings etched into the high desert landscape of Peru, which consist primarily of geometric shapes, but also include depictions of a variety of animals, and at least one human figure. Many believers in ancient astronauts cite the Nazca Lines as evidence because the figures created by the lines are most clearly depicted, or only able to be seen when viewed from the air. Writing Professor Joe Nickell of the University of Kentucky, using only technology he believed to be available to people of the time, was able to recreate one of the larger figures with a reasonable degree of accuracy. Ancient artifacts. Alleged physical evidence includes the discovery of artifacts in Egypt, the Saqqara bird, and Colombia, Ecuador, which are claimed to be similar to modern planes and gliders, although these have been interpreted by archaeologists as stylized representations of birds and insects. Megalithic sites. Evidence for ancient astronauts is claimed to include the existence of ancient monuments, and megalithic ruins such as the Giza pyramids of Egypt, Machu Picchu in Peru, or Baalbek in Lebanon, the Moai of Easter Island, and Stonehenge of England. Supporters contend these stone structures could not have been built with the technical abilities and tools of the people of the time, and further argue that many could not be duplicated even today. They suggest that the large size of the building stones, the precision with which they were laid, and the distances many were transported leaves the question open as to who constructed these sites. These contentions are categorically rejected by mainstream archaeology. Some mainstream archaeologists have participated in experiments to move large megaliths. These experiments have succeeded in moving megaliths up to at least 40 tons, and they have speculated that with a larger workforce larger megaliths could be towed with ancient technology. Such allegations are not unique in history, however, as similar reasoning lay behind the wonder of the Cyclopean masonry walling of Mycenaean cities in the eyes of Greeks of the following Dark Age, who believed that the giant Cyclopes had built the walls.